had to go through some things to get here. You had to push through. Keep your head up, keep moving, keep believing when you felt things didn't add up. And I'm telling you now, people see it. People are proud of you. People respect how you handled what you went through. Some of them are even watching. You didn't just survive that season. You changed in it. You built strength, patience, and grace. That's why your life hits different now. That's why doors are still. Welcome to a space where you can finally breathe and feel safe. Welcome to Blended Healing. Here we honor every piece of your journey and walk with you toward balance, clarity, and peace. Welcome to Blended Healing.
Every soul aligned. The city keeps beating loud.
Y'all slide up for a second because I got a story to tell you. Just know you are not here by accident. If you found your way into this space, then trust me, you were guided here for a reason. So go on and get yourself settled, get your coffee, get your mind right, and let's talk about it. Because baby, this right here, I have a story. Welcome to Blended Healing.
I look up once, heaven responds. White light moves through, truth carries on.
The hallway, the place where you were in between who you were and who you are becoming. The hallway is the place where most things hash out. We are now up to chapter 4, the dark room. Who am I? Who am I? Monday arrived without asking permission. For more than 2 decades, Mondays had been predictable. The alarm rang before sunrise, coffee brewed while she got dressed, the television filled the apartment with morning news she barely listened to. She grabbed her keys, locked the door behind her, and joined thousands of other people, beginning another work week. She never questioned the routine, because routines have a way of convincing you that they'll last forever. This Monday was different. There was no alarm, no rush, no traffic waiting for her outside the window. The apartment was so still that she can hear the refrigerator humming from the kitchen. She opened her eyes and stared at the ceiling for several minutes before sitting up. Habit told her she was late for something. Reality reminded her there was nowhere she had to be. She walked into the kitchen wearing an old sweatshirt filled the coffee maker and stood quietly while it brewed. Normally, she would have been checking the clock, mentally planning the day before she even left the apartment. Instead, she found herself watching steam rise from the coffee pot as though it had all the time in the world. She carried her mug to the living room and settled into the chair beside the window. Outside, the neighborhood looked exactly as it always had. Cars pulled out of driveways, school buses stopped at their familiar corners, neighbors hurried toward jobs, appointments, and responsibility. Life had continued without asking whether she was ready. She should have been one of them. Instead, she sat behind the glass, watching the morning pass without her. At first, she told herself she missed the work, the people, the conversations, the rhythm of the day. But the longer she sat there, the more honest she became. It wasn't the work she missed. It was knowing who she was. For 22 years, introducing herself had been easy. Someone would ask what she did, and she always had an answer. Her career had become more than employment. It had become an introduction, a routine, a purpose, a place where people knew her name and expected her to show up. Without it, she felt strangely invisible. That realization unsettled her. She had spent weeks believing she was grieving a job. Now she wondered if she had really been grieving an identity. The thought followed her throughout the day. As she folded laundry, as she washed dishes, she walked from one room to another with no real destination. Every ordinary task seemed to ask the same question. Who are you when nobody needs you to clock in? She didn't have an answer. Not yet. By late afternoon, she found herself standing in front of the hallway mirror. She wasn't fixing her hair. She wasn't checking her clothes. She was simply looking. The woman staring back at her looked exactly the same as she did a month earlier. The same eyes, the same smile, the same hands that worked faithfully for 22 years. Nothing about her appearance had changed. Yet everything about the way she saw herself had. For the first time in her adult life, she realized she had spent years building a career without spending the same amount of time getting to know the woman underneath it. That thought stayed with her long after she walked away from the mirror. She couldn't explain why. She only knew that somewhere inside of her, another door had quietly opened. This one didn't lead to another job. It led inward. Welcome to Blended Healing. Welcome to the morning inspiration and real talk. Story time. Chapter 4 of The Hallway, The Dark Room. Welcome.
The darkest season of her life became the place where she finally met herself. Through honest journaling, quiet walks, and moments of deep reflection, I discovered who I truly am. Stop defining myself by fear, disappointment, and loss. I learned to protect my peace, trust my intuition, and see that every mistake had been preparing me for the woman I was becoming. What once felt like punishment revealed itself to be preparation. And in the darkness, she discovered a strength that had been there all along.
Hold up, Queen Cammy pulled up. Ghost Rider recap. Yeah. She slide through like, what's up, fam? Let's run this back. Tap in with the city, yeah, she keep the folks on track. Got that love in her stride, got that truth in her tone. Breaking down the headlines like she's sitting on a throne. Community.
I am celebrating. Come and join me. I have a surprise for you. I am pleased to announce that I have joined the Chamaka Essentials family. Welcome to Chamaka Essentials West Coast. I enjoy Chamaka Essentials aromatherapy products, and I know you will too. You will now be able to purchase her aromatherapy products directly from me, Queen Cammy Royal Essentials, and other aromatherapy products are available. Drop me an email and arrange your product delivery options.
This is a BLES, Black Lady Doing Shit production.
Real talk. Real talk. Salute to Cammy, the newest member of the Chamaka Essentials team. West Coast, baby. West Coast. Tap into Cammy. Her link to her channel is there. Drop her something. She'll respond back to you, I promise. The notebook stayed on the table for 3 days before she opened it again. She knew writing meant telling the truth. It was easier to clean the apartment, easier to reorganize a closet, and easier to scroll through job postings she wasn't sure she wanted. Those things kept her busy. The notebook asked her to be honest. On Thursday morning, she carried a fresh cup of coffee to the table, opened to a blank page, and uncapped her pen. She stared at the empty paper for several minutes before writing the date in the upper right-hand corner. Beneath it, she wrote 5 simple words. Who have I been pretending to be? She stopped. The question felt way heavier than she expected. She wanted to answer it quickly: strong, independent, responsible, reliable. Those words came easily because people had been saying them about her for years. But they weren't the answer to the question. She crossed them out. The room became very quiet. She lowered the pen again and, almost without thinking, began writing whatever came into her mind. I've been pretending that I am never afraid. I've been pretending that I don't need help, that being busy means I'm happy. She paused, feeling her chest tighten before writing one more sentence. I have been pretending that if I keep taking care of everybody else, no one will notice the parts of me that still need healing. She leaned back and read the page from the beginning. For a moment, she wanted to tear it out. The words didn't even sound like the woman she introduced to the world. They sounded like a woman who had spent years protecting from it. She closed her eyes and remembered something Evelyn had said. People spend years defending stories that no longer belong to them. Maybe she had been doing exactly that. Maybe the strongest version of herself wasn't the woman who never struggled. Maybe it was the woman who finally admitted she had. She turned to another page. This time she didn't write about work. She wrote about disappointment. The opportunities she never took because they felt too risky. The friendships she held on to long after they had become one-sided. The time she said yes when everything inside of her wanted to say no. The dreams she placed on a shelf because life always seemed to need something else first. She didn't judge herself as she wrote. She simply told the truth. Page after page, the weight that she had been holding on to slowly found another place to live. It no longer had to stay inside her. By the time the coffee had gone cold, she looked down at the notebook and realized something unexpected. She wasn't writing to remember the past. She was writing so she could stop dragging it into her future. She closed the notebook, rested both hands on the cover, and smiled at herself. And for the first time, honestly, she didn't feel as though it was any type of criticism. It felt like freedom. She finally understood why people called it doing the work. Because it required her to have the courage to meet herself without looking away. Powerful.
You are now tuned in
Collaboration over competition. It's the family, COC, and the world gonna know.
Let's go.
Collaboration over competition. I told y'all, baby, let's go. COC, and the world gonna know.
Fire. It's big COC.
Collaboration over competition. I am the music and sound behind the COC, baby. Let's go. COC, and the world gonna know.
They try to write us off like a bad check. They try to overshadow
Collaboration over competition. Blessings on blessing. You already know. Let's go. COC, and the world gonna know.
Collaboration over competition. What up, fam? COC, and the world gonna know.
Let's go. It's big COC energy, fam.
The COC and the world gonna know.
Let's go.
Voices in the darkness.
Yeah.
Bring the
Listen. COC fire continue to shine bright. It's shining all day and it's shining all night. Let's go. COC fire continue to shine bright. It's shining all day.
Let's go. COC all day, every day, baby. You know what I mean? Collaboration over competition. There's enough room at the table. It's about helping one another, helping the greater good over the one. You dig? All right. Chapter 4, The Dark Room. The walks. The walks. You see, the journal became part of her mornings. The walks became part of her evenings. Every afternoon just before sunset, she laced up the same pair of sneakers, locked the apartment door, and wandered without deciding where she was going. Some days she walked through the neighborhood. Other days she found herself back at the park where everything had first begun. There was no destination, no fitness goal, no stopwatch. She just simply walked until the noise inside of her settled down enough for her to hear herself think. At first, she carried her phone everywhere. Music filled the silence. Podcast filled the empty spaces. News reports reminded her of everything happening in the world beyond her own. And then one evening, the battery died halfway through her walk. She almost turned around. Instead, she kept walking. Without the constant stream of voices, the world sounded different. She heard leaves brushing against one another, high above her head. Birds called back and forth from opposite sides of the park. Wind moved through the trees like a rhythm she had somehow missed for years. A squirrel darted across the path carrying something twice its size, determined to get it where it was going. Children laughed in the distance while an elderly couple walked hand in hand, saying very little at all. She realized how much she had been missing. Her attention had been somewhere else. The more she walked, the more she noticed. She noticed that some days she could sense another person's mood before they spoke a single word. She noticed how certain places made her feel peaceful, while others left her feeling strangely unsettled. She noticed that not every conversation deserved her energy, and not every problem belonged on her shoulders. For years, she had absorbed whatever people carried into the room without realizing she was doing it. She mistook sensitivity for responsibility. She believed that if someone around her was hurting, it was somehow her job to carry a piece of that hurt with them. Now she was beginning to understand the difference. Compassion did not require ownership. She could care without carrying. She could listen without losing herself. She could love people without absorbing every emotion they placed in front of her. That realization changed the way she moved through the world. One evening, she stopped beside the lake just as the sun slipped below the trees. The water reflected streaks of gold, orange, deep purple, yet the surface remained perfectly still. She stood there for several minutes, watching the colors change without trying to hold on to any of them. Life was doing what it had always done, changing, flowing, letting go. She closed her eyes and took a slow breath. For the first time in a long time, she didn't ask herself what was coming next. She asked herself what this moment was trying to teach her. When she opened her eyes again, nothing around her had changed. The trees were still there. The water still moved gently against the shore. The evening breeze still carried the scent of fresh grass. The change had happened inside of her. She smiled and started to walk home, understanding that healing wasn't always found in another conversation, another book, or another workshop. Sometimes it just came one step at a time, while the rest of the world simply kept being itself. And somewhere between those ordinary walks, in those quiet evenings, she began trusting the gentle voice within her more than the fearful one that had been leading her for so many years.
But the longer she sat there, the more honest she became. It wasn't the work she missed. It was knowing who she was. For 22 years introducing herself, it had become an introduction, a routine. The woman staring back at me looked exactly the same she'd a month earlier. Nothing about her appearance had changed. Yet everything about the way I saw myself had. Who are you when nobody needs you to clock in? She didn't have an answer, not yet. By late afternoon, she found herself standing in front of the hallway mirror. For the first time in my adult life, I realized I had spent years building a career without spending the same amount of time getting to know the woman underneath it.
The notebook stayed on the kitchen table for 3 days before she opened it again.
She knew writing meant telling the truth. It was easier to clean the apartment, organize a closet, and scroll through job postings. Those things kept her busy. The notebook asked her to be honest. I've been pretending that if I keep taking care of everybody else, no one will notice the parts of me that still need healing. People spend years defending stories that no longer belong to them. Maybe I had been doing exactly that. Page after page, the weight I'd been carrying slowly found another place to live. It no longer had to stay inside me. By the time the coffee had gone cold, I looked down at the notebook and realized I wasn't writing to remember the past. I was writing so I could stop dragging it into my future. It's time to let go.
So blessings, honey, spray so glow, feel the magic pressing. Chimaka essentials, house of blessings, honey. Every night, every way, lift your spirit rising. Lift your spirit rising. Mystery box, what's inside? Lunar drift to guide the light. Terror spreads, visions clear. Chimaka essentials is always near where by. Chimaka essentials, house of blessings, fun. Spray so close, feel the magic pressing.
Make sure you check out ShamakaEssentials.com. I'm a whole.com. Make sure you go in there and check out the new seasonal scents for summer. And grab yourself something, you know what I mean? All right. Part 4. The dark room. Guarding her energy. As the weeks passed, she began noticing something she had never paid attention to before. Not everyone left her feeling the same. Some conversations lifted her spirit. Some would leave her smiling, energized, and somehow lighter than when she arrived. Other conversations left her feeling exhausted, even when she had hardly spoken at all. She couldn't understand it at first. She blamed the long days, the uncertainty, and everything that had happened over the past few months. Then one afternoon, she realized that tiredness wasn't always hers. For years, she had walked into every room believing it was her responsibility to make people feel better. If someone was angry, she tried to calm them. If someone was grieving, she carried a piece of their sadness home with her. If someone was overwhelmed, she made their burden her own. She had spent so much of her life absorbing other people's emotions that she no longer knew where they ended and where she began. It explained why she often felt drained after spending time with certain people. She wasn't just listening to their problems, she was living them. That realization changed the way she looked at compassion. Compassion didn't mean carrying everybody else's weight. Compassion meant carrying or caring without disappearing. One Saturday morning, she met an old acquaintance for breakfast. Before they had even ordered, the conversation became a list of complaints. The economy, family, politics, neighbors, work, health, every subject somehow circled back to disappointment. She noticed herself doing what she always done, nodding, agreeing, trying to fix things that weren't hers to fix. Then she stopped. Not the conversation, herself. She listened with kindness, but she no longer reached inside of herself looking for something to give away. She realized that being present didn't require becoming emotionally responsible for another person's life. When the meal ended, she hugged her friend goodbye and walked to her car. And for the first time after a conversation like that, she didn't feel heavy. She felt peaceful. Driving home, she rolled the windows down and let the cold air move through the car. It felt as though something inside of her was being carried away with the breeze. Not her compassion or her love for people, just a habit of believing every burden belonged on her shoulders. That night, she returned to her journal. She wrote one sentence across the top of the fresh page. Not everything I feel belongs to me. She looked at the words for a long time before continuing. I can love people without losing myself. I can listen without holding on to their pain and bringing it home. I can pray for someone without becoming responsible for the outcome. I can walk away with love in my heart and peace in my spirit. As she finished writing, she realized something else that had been happening. The apartment felt different. She had opened the windows more often. Fresh air moved through every room. Closets had been cleaned. Old papers had been shredded. Boxes had been meaning to sort through for years had finally been empty, and without realizing it, she hadn't just been cleaning her apartment, she had been making space. The clutter outside had mirrored the clutter within. Little by little, both were disappearing. She closed the notebook, walked to the window, and opened it wide. A gentle breeze came through the room, moving the curtains just enough to remind her that fresh air only enters when something else is allowed to leave. She smiled. Maybe healing wasn't about becoming someone new. Maybe it was about clearing away everything that had been hiding who she had been all along. Maybe. Listening to herself. There was a time when every decision felt like a committee meeting inside of her own mind. One voice reminded her of everything that could go wrong. Another replayed old mistakes as though they were warnings she should never forget. Yet another wondered what everyone else would think before she ever stopped to ask herself what she thought. By the time she had listened to every opinion inside of her head, she was too exhausted to make a decision at all. Fear had become very convincing. It always sounded practical. It sounded responsible. And it always had evidence. The more she thought about it, the more she realized fear had been making decisions for her long before she lost her job. It convinced her not to apply for certain positions because someone else would probably be more qualified. It persuaded her to stay quiet when she wanted to speak. It told her to hold on to relationships that had long stopped bringing peace because being lonely seemed scarier than starting over. Fear never raised its voice. It whispered. Because it whispered, she often mistook it for wisdom. One afternoon, she was driving home after dropping off another job application. When she reached an intersection, the road home was to the right. To the left was the park. Without thinking, she turned left. She laughed to herself. For weeks, she had been trying to plan every step of her future. Yet the best part of her day had come from a decision she hadn't analyzed at all. She parked beneath the same maple tree and walked toward the lake. The breeze was cooler than usual. The water carried small ripples across its surface. She found her favorite bench and sat without reaching for her phone. She simply listened, not to the birds or to the wind, to herself. No booming answers, just a quiet knowing that she had ignored for years. Because it wasn't loud enough to compete with her fear. She realized that every time she had trusted that quiet feeling in the past, life had somehow worked itself out. The trouble was, she usually talked herself out of it before giving it a chance. She remembered the apartment she almost didn't rent because it felt too expensive, the vacation she almost canceled because there was too much work to do, the friendship she almost walked away from because she assumed she wasn't important enough to matter. Each time, something inside of her had gently nudged her forward. Each time, fear had argued for staying exactly where she was. And as she sat beside the lake, she finally understood the difference. Fear demanded certainty. Wisdom asked for trust. Fear wanted guarantees. Wisdom wanted courage. She closed her eyes and took a slow breath. For the first time, she stopped asking the question that had followed her since losing her job. What if this doesn't work? Instead, another question took its place. What if it does? She smiled. It wasn't because she suddenly knew what the future held. It was because she finally trusted herself enough to walk toward it. As the sun settled behind the trees, she stopped and stood from the bench and started towards her car. Her circumstances had not changed. She still needed a job. She had bills. She had unanswered questions, but something far more important had changed. She no longer needed fear to make her decision. She had found something stronger. She found herself.
The journal became part of her mornings. The walks became part of her evenings. Every afternoon, just before sunset, she laced up the same pair of sneakers, locked the apartment door, and wandered without deciding where she was going.
Some days she walked through the neighborhood. Other days she found herself back at the park where everything had first begun. There was no destination, no fitness goal, no stopwatch.
Life was doing what it had always done, changing, flowing, letting go. She closed her eyes and took a slow breath. For the first time in a long time, she don't ask herself what was coming next. She asked herself what this moment was trying to teach her.
When she opened her eyes again, nothing around her had changed. The trees were still there, the water still moved gently against the shore, the evening breeze still carried the scent of fresh grass. The change had happened inside her. One afternoon, I realized the tiredness wasn't always mine. For years, I walked into every room believing it was my responsibility to make people feel better. I can't take this anymore! I know. Breathe. I'm here. It hurts so much. I'm carrying it with you. It's all too much! We'll do it together. She had spent so much of her life absorbing other people's emotions that she no longer knew where they ended and where she began. It explained why she often felt drained after spending time with certain people. She wasn't just listening to their problems, she was living them. Not everything I feel belongs to me. I need to remember that. I can love people without losing myself. I can listen without carrying their pain home. I can pray for someone without becoming responsible for the outcome. I can walk away with love in my heart and peace in my spirit. As she finished writing, she realized something else had quietly been happening. The apartment felt different. She had opened the windows more often. Fresh air moved through every room. There was a time when every decision felt like a committee meeting inside her own mind. One voice reminded her of everything that could go wrong. Another replayed old mistakes as though they were warnings she should never forget. Yet another wondered what everyone else would think before she ever stopped to ask herself what she thought. By the time she had listened to every opinion inside her head, she was too exhausted to make a decision at all. Fear had become very convincing. Something inside me had gently nudged me forward. Each time, fear had argued for staying exactly where I was. As I sat beside the lake, I finally understood the difference. Fear demanded certainty. Wisdom asked for trust. Fear wanted guarantees. Wisdom wanted courage.
One rainy afternoon, she pulled an old storage box from the back of her bedroom closet. Inside were notebooks, birthday cards, newspaper clippings, training certificates, and photographs she hadn't looked at in years. She carried the box into the living room, sat cross-legged on the floor, and began sorting through the pieces of life she had almost forgotten. A faded photograph slipped from one of the folders. She smiled. It was her first day at the company. She looked so young. The smile on her face wasn't the smile of someone who knew exactly where life was going. It was the smile of someone excited to begin. She remembered that woman. She remembered how fearless she had been. She believed opportunities were everywhere. She believed mistakes were simply part of learning. Somewhere over the years, the woman had slowly disappeared beneath deadlines, responsibilities, routines, and quiet pressure to always get everything right. She placed the photograph beside her and continued searching through the box. There were certificates from classes she had forgotten she had taken, thank you cards from coworkers, handwritten notes from supervisors thanking her for solving problems no one else wanted to touch. There were reminders of kindness she had completely overlooked because she had spent so much time remembering the disappointments. Instead, she leaned back against the couch and laughed to herself softly. Her life hadn't been made up only of mistakes. Her memory had simply been giving the mistakes more attention than the victories. That realization changed something. She picked up her journal and turned to a clean page. Across the top, she wrote one question. What if my mistakes were teachers instead of judges? She stared at the words for a long time before answering them. The promotion she never received had taught her not to build her worth around somebody else's approval. The friendship that quietly faded had shown her that love cannot survive where effort only travels in one direction. The relationship she stayed in too long had taught her that peace is worth protecting. The opportunities she was afraid to take had shown her that regret often weighs more than failure. Even losing her job had forced her to meet parts of herself that she would have never discovered if life had remained comfortable. For the first time, she stopped asking why those things had happened. She started asking what they had given her. The answer surprised her. Strength, patience, discernment, humility, grace, compassion. Not only for other people, but for herself. She realized that she had spent years forgiving everyone, except the woman who looked back at her in the mirror each morning. She had excused other people's mistakes while replaying her own over and over, as though they deserved a harsher sentence. She closed the journal and walked toward the hallway mirror. The reflection hadn't changed, but the way she looked at it had. She smiled at the woman standing there because she had survived enough to know she didn't have to. Every wrong turn had taught her another direction. Every disappointment had uncovered another truth. Every mistake had become a teacher she never would have chosen, but would never again refuse to acknowledge. She reached over, switched off the hallway light, and walked toward the bedroom, carrying something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Quiet confidence that her past had not been working against her. It had been preparing her all along.
Make it hot. Yeah. I know what this is, man. It's that real smooth player shit, man. Straight classic. Network shit. Make it hot.
Man, my whip is mad dirty. Let me take it to the car wash. Whoa, this place looks ran down.
Is this rolling with a shine? I need my car wash, bro. Oh, you can meet me at my house, vet. I'll see you soon.
Nah, I'm out.
My car is real dirty. That's not sexy at all. Oh, wait a minute. There is a sign for a car wash. Cool. I'm on it. Oh, heck no. You can't be serious.
Is this rolling with a shine? Yo, bro, I need my car washed and detailed. You can meet me at my job and wash it right there? Cool, see you there. I'm out.
Ooh, man. Now that's sexy. Y'all need to get with rolling with a shine.
Never speak low, my folks, that's how I feel with. Give and take all of the smoke, that's how I deal with. I heal with them as we seek to behold. Can't let nothing stop.
The smile on her face wasn't the smile of someone who knew exactly where life was going. It was the smile of someone excited to begin. She remembered that woman. I remembered how fearless I had been. I believed opportunities were everywhere. I believed mistakes were simply part of learning.
Somewhere over the years, that woman had slowly disappeared beneath deadlines, responsibilities, routines, and the quiet pressure to always get everything right.
I lost myself. The relationship she stayed in too long had taught her that peace is worth protecting. The opportunities she was afraid to take had shown her that regret often weighs more than failure. Even losing her job had forced her to meet parts of herself she never would have discovered if life had remained comfortable. For the first time, she stopped asking why those things had happened. What did they give me? Strength, patience, discernment, humility, grace, compassion. Compassion for myself? Yes, not only for others, but for yourself. The past several weeks have felt exactly like this. Dark, uncertain, unfamiliar. I keep asking when the light will return. She never stopped to consider another possibility. Maybe the darkness wasn't there to punish her. Maybe it was there so she could finally see what the daylight had been hiding. Darkness no longer frightened her. She knew something now that she hadn't known before.
Seeds begin their journey underground. Photographs are developed in dark rooms. And sometimes the most beautiful seasons of a person's life begin long before anyone else can see the growth taking place.
Time to turn in.
The light was always there. That night, she didn't reach for TV. She didn't scroll through her phone. She didn't search another job board, hoping the perfect opportunity would suddenly appear. Instead, she carried her tea to the living room, turned off every light except a small lamp beside her chair, sat quietly. The apartment was almost dark. A month ago, that darkness would have made her uncomfortable. She would have reached for noise to fill it or found another task to keep herself distracted. Tonight, she just simply sat there, listening to the gentle rhythm of her own breathing. The silence no longer felt empty. It felt honest. She looked around the room and it occurred to her that the past several weeks had felt exactly like this: dark, uncertain, unfamiliar. She had spent so much time asking when the light would return that she never stopped to consider another possibility. Maybe the darkness wasn't there to punish her. Maybe it was there so she can finally see what the daylight had been hiding. She thought about everything that had happened since the company closed. The empty Monday mornings, the park bench, the flyers she almost threw away, the workshop, Melvin, Harold, Evelyn, Maya, Denise, the journal, the evening walks. Every moment had once called an interruption, had become an invitation. Without losing the job, she would have never attended the workshop. Without the workshop, she never would have met the people who challenged the stories she believed about herself. And without slowing down, she would have never have realized how exhausted she had become trying to carry everyone else's burdens. Without the uncertainty, she never would have learned to trust her own voice. She smiled to herself. Life had not fallen apart. Life had gently pulled her away from the only version of herself she believed she was allowed to be. She walked toward the hallway mirror one last time before going to bed. The woman looking back at her wasn't stronger because life had been easy. She was stronger because she had stopped running from the parts of herself that needed healing. She finally understood that courage wasn't the absence of fear. Courage was continuing to move forward, even while fear whispered in the background. Her hand rested on the light switch for a moment. darkness no longer frightened her. She knew something now that she hadn't known before. Seeds begin their journey underground. Photographs are developed in dark rooms, and sometimes the most beautiful seasons of a person's life began long before anyone else can see the growth taking place. She turned off the light, walked quietly down the hallway, and closed the door of her bedroom behind her. Tomorrow will come soon enough. For the first time in a very long time, she wasn't afraid to meet it. Ashe. That is the end of chapter 4. The next time we meet will be in chapter 5. So stay tuned. You never know with me. It could be the following day or the following day or the following day. But I'll let you know one way or the other. Whoever's story this is that is being elongated, please take what resonates with you and leave the rest. Now listen, I gotta go. I gave you almost an hour today. Oh Lord, you know I got to go. I got work to do. I got a job, baby. I got work to do. I gotta go. I can't be here with you all day. Good Lord. It's time to go. I got meetings to go to. A slew of work on my desk. Don't you got a job? Stop trying to hold me. I gotta go. All right. Be well, stay safe. Ashe and deep bow to each and every one of you. And I'll see you very, very soon. Be well.
Holistic Royalty by Kels, and the world gonna know.
I pause and feel the path I've walked. Every step
Holistic Royalty by Kels, for your holistic wellness.
lessons carried in my
All my teas and tinctures are carefully crafted by me for you.
quiet victory.
I pride myself in creating quality products for holistic wellness. This is just the beginning of the process of where I select the finest of herbs and flowers to create my products.
Your health journey belongs to you. You live in this body. You decide how it's cared for. You choose what story comes next.
You can contact me at the links posted below.
I recognize my milestone within the quiet power.
This is a BLDS, Black Lady Doing Shit production.
COC and the world gonna know.
Hope you received what you needed today. Thank you for coming by and spending some time with me. Come back soon. Ashe and deep bow to you.